When we need to prepare for a competitive event, our go-to company is the Army Painter.
Thanks to their complete range of paints, spray cans, and gaming tools, we're able to complete our new armies and units in no time.
When we need to elevate the quality of our models and terrain, the Army Painter is always our first choice.
You may not know this, but the Army Painter has sponsored more competitive events than any other hobby company.
Tournament and wargaming is in their DNA.
Visit thearmypainter.com to learn more about their amazing products.
And use promo code AOWPaints for a 5% discount from your Army Painter purchases.
What are you waiting for? Discover the best way to prepare your models for events with the Army Painter today.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another exciting Art of War Fix My List. This time we have fixed our audio issues. There's always a nurgling in the systems. But today we're going to be talking about fixing lists. This is our weekly Thursday show where we take 3 lists submitted by our wonderful Warhammer community and, well, it's in the name, we fix those lists. This week we're going to be focusing on lists from the Imperium, but if you're a heretic or maybe a Xenos lover, worry not, we do change the topic every single week. Jack, good morning.
Good morning, John. And I'm so happy to be coming at you with some sound this time. Our tech just wasn't working today, maybe because we didn't get it or put batteries in them. But like for whatever reason, it wasn't working. I feel like that's its fault.
Indeed. But now we're here, we're ready to roll. So if you perhaps enjoy these shows, maybe you watch every week, maybe this is your first time, and you are wondering, how do I get my list fixed? Well, it's actually quite simple. All you have to do is go post your list in the Fix My List submission section of the Art of War Discord. And to get there, you can either become a member of the YouTube channel. You can, of course, click all those wonderful buttons, or you can go to the link in the description below, thewarroom.vhx.tv, to get a free trial to the War Room. By being either a member of the YouTube channel or a member of the War Room, you get access to our wonderful Art of War Discord. And that's where you get to post lists, and that's where we take them to fix them.
That's it. That's absolutely it. You get in there, you post, maybe say something nice about me. I'm the one who picks them, so you know you can say nice stuff about John, but it's
I won't even know.
It's you know it's just throwing your comments away. That's all that's happening here. It's especially nice. I might tell him. Next week is going to be Fix My List Space Marines. Ooh. So if you want to get in there and start tossing your lists in, maybe you have a Space Marine list at home and you're maybe going to an event or something, and you want us to take a look at it. As John said, you can go to thewarroom.vhx.tv. It's down in the link below.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to go start off with an Imperial Knights Noble Lance.
That's right. So, why don't you read us what little is in here? This is submitted by Corkin from our Discord, or otherwise known as Kit Smith Hannah. Fairly well-known tournament player.
Indeed, indeed. So we have Canis Rex, a Cerastus Knight Lancer, a Knight Crusader, a Knight Gallant, and an Armiger Warglaive, making up the Imperial Knights Noble Lance detachment. And then we have some agents of the Imperium, and that's real simple, just 2 4-strong Inquisitorial henchmen, 40 points each, just some good button pressers for the Imperial Knights.
Boop, boop, boop.
All right, so let's look at this Knights list. First up, we have 4 big Titanic boys. This is, I'm not gonna lie, a lot of beef.
Yeah, it is a lot of beef. Now, no enhancements, which I don't know if that's correct or not.
I generally like enhancements, but none of the Imperial Knight enhancements are like so mandatory that you just have to. I just would prefer to find them if I could.
Teleporting boys do be good.
That's true, but this list immediately looks like it's trying to overwhelm someone. It's
Yes.
just, it's 4 big boys, and if they can handle that, cool. If they can't, better.
This is 25 points under,
Okay.
which is nice. That might be because points went down. I don't know. This was from a couple months ago because I've gotten sick and fed up with not having Knights lists on Fix My List. But
So we're getting Knights list.
people have let down their oaths and have not submitted them in a while.
That is unfortunate. So looking at this, we kind of have to decide if we want to stick with 4 big boys or if we want to try to change some things out. One of the more interesting things here is the Gallant in my mind. Because it is quite cheap, it also does hit quite hard in combat. You know, it's a Gallant, you kind of expect it to. It's more attacks with higher weapon skill than the weapons would be on another knight.
That sounds like a melee knight. I'll be 100 with you.
It is a little bit cheaper, but I wonder if we're trying to overwhelm people with knight chassis, is it worth trying to replace the Gallant with something else? Because my memory is that something like an Errant is very similar cost, while at least being a gun, and then still capable in combat and defensively identical.
When you have so few activations, right, they're pretty nasty. I don't want to get shot by a Crusader. I don't want to get shot by Canis Rex. I'm okay getting shot by the Knight Lancer, though. When you have so few activations, tacking on another one, especially one that can very credibly kill a transport, is pretty huge. So we do have 25 points. So if we cut the Knight Gallant, we'd have 425. How does that make you feel?
It's a question of, are we sticking to 4 big boys? Because we could, the standard, like there's a general ratio to knight lists.
Right.
Because knight lists are genuinely described as like a 4-1, a 3-3, or a 3-4, a 2-7, which is the ratio of big knights to little knights. You know, if you're ever in the Knight Discord, I'll sometimes just reference a list as, oh yeah, it's a 3-4 list. And a dedicated knight player will probably know that it means it's a 3 big knights, 4 small knights list, because that ratio kind of defines knight archetypes because of how inflexible points end up being. Where usually you can fiddle with what knights are who, and enhancements, and the allies, but it's very hard to change the ratio without taking nothing but the cheapest knights.
Exactly. Yeah, like you can, like a 3-3 list would be doable. That would just require taking more, like it would be what you would have happen if you took the more expensive big knights.
Yeah.
You'd end up 3-3.
And a 3-5 would be like triple Gallant, 5 Warglaives, no enhancements.
Ew.
I like those. That's a me thing. Yeah, I've never actually done the math on that, so I couldn't comment. Yeah. Let's start by just doing a quick ranking of the 4 big knights we've got. Canis Rex is staying in the list. He's amazing.
Canis
He is, in my opinion, the best single knight available to Imperial Knights, and he will not be exiting this list under any circumstances.
He's good enough you can even ally him, which is something you cannot say
for
anything else. DK Knife Works. Which Discord do we submit Fix My Lists in? So Discord, you're going to want to go to the Art of War Discord. If you don't have access to that, you want to go to the link below at theartofwar.vhx.tv, where there is a 3-day free trial where you can get in, see everything's going on, get all of our tactical videos, and also submit your list. And then once you're in that Discord, you want to go to the Fix My List submissions channel.
Absolutely.
And post your list up.
Yeah. And and thanks for the question. So, Canis Rex is staying. I have been personally very fond of the Cerastus Knight Lancer, it having a default 4-up invuln all the time. Don't need to worry about like anything else. It doesn't rotate, it has it in combat. It just is a 4-pin bolt. I like the Lancer a lot. It is a little on the pricey side.
465 seems high, but that's not
It is
necessarily.
high, yeah, but it is then, you know, significantly faster, and not significantly, but it is, you know, like more wounds than a normal knight.
24 or?
It's 25, so it's
25.
It's 4 inches faster than Canis, and it has 3 more wounds and a built-in 4-pin bolt.
Is this the sort of thing where you would think about getting rid of it so you can put more guns in?
I wasn't actually thinking of getting rid of it necessarily. I've really liked the Lancer when I've played with it. If I were to get rid of it, it definitely would be for the sake of more guns, because you know, if you have this many knights and there's 4 of them, and then you lose the main gun knight, because that just happens to be the first one they kill because he's shooting, so they're probably shooting him back. If that scenario happens, you can run into an unfortunate situation where it's like, oh yeah, I am just now a knight army that can't do anything about a move block.
Yes.
And you don't have any guns, and then you're just like hitting the front wave and nothing else, while their guns are standing in the open shooting you.
Canis is good. I've seen him be somewhat inconsistent. He's tied to shot count.
Yep, and you have a CP reroll for the shot count, and it's free, so like it's as reliable as you can make a D6 shot weapon. But that does not change the fact that if you roll a 3 and you decide not to reroll it because you didn't want it to be a 1, then a 3 probably doesn't kill a tank.
Probably not unless you roll really good 5s.
Never know. Yeah, so I'm of the opinion that this list probably does want to end up being a couple more armigers, because I think 4 big knights, unfortunately, leaves you too light on things to play the game with. And I don't believe that knights are so fierce by the moment that they're making a game plan primarily around table first, score second, because if that is your only game plan, most people see it coming.
You're also going to end up with, you know, you have 7 units in this army. A lot of them are single models and can't stretch to 2 objectives on anything that isn't the ritual. Yep. So you're going to end up with, like, I survived with Canis on low and a Knight Crusader, and like, you can hold 2 objectives with that.
Yeah.
As long as you continually pass battle shock checks for whichever one guy is left on low, you know?
Yeah, and also as long as you don't want to walk off for shooting angles or combat.
Exactly.
So I think we need more stuff, and unfortunately I think that means one of these knights has to go. 65 points is a not cheap upgrade over the Gallant, but in my opinion, I think the Lancer has to stay in, because if you're just too fragile, you run into a problem. Something I have considered, though this may be crazy.
I'm here to hear crazy.
Is what about 2 Lancers?
What happened to the I'm too vulnerable to move blocks plan?
You charge them. If you're fragile and vulnerable to move blocks, it's not good. What if you're tough?
What if you just kill the move blocks, they shoot you kill the move blocks again, they shoot you kill the move blocks again?
Yes, no.
It's not
I'm just wondering, because like at that point you can just rotate Canis every turn if you need to, and then it's just like, yep, they all are 4-pin bolts.
Yeah, 4-pin bolts on things that are that large are super annoying.
Yes.
You also can't solve the Lancer in combat because it has that 4-pin bolt in combat, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct, and you do also run into the funny thing of the Lancer's free tank shock is not a 1 Lancer per, so you can do 18 mortals to a move blocking unit and then just keep going.
Charge with Canis, tank shock. Charge with the Lancer, free tank shock and again. Charge with the second Lancer, oh, free tank shock and again. Yeah, anytime my Blade Champ can get to declare 2 heroic interventions for free,
all I'm saying is
get a little confused.
If I ever kill the Nightbringer from 12 to 0 in the charge phase, I would be a happy boy.
That's true. That's
what 18 Mortals does.
That is what 18 Mortals should do. Depends on who's on the other end of that. Feel no pain.
Yeah, a lot of 5s being rolled.
A lot of 5s being rolled around here. Are we looking for like almost no guns in this army?
I think we have to choose a direction. It doesn't have to be no guns. It doesn't have to be double Lancer. I'm just because in my opinion, the default loadout for a 3 knight list is Canis, Lancer, Crusader.
Okay.
And that's the default. And we could do that because I think that is quite good. Or we could explore if any of the other big knights are worth looking at here.
Why don't we take a quick hot second and go through and just look at the options that are playable?
Yeah.
So if you pick the reroll hit, is it hit and wound or hit or wound?
1 hit and 1 wound.
That is good for low shot count weapons.
Yes.
Okay.
The Knight Errant, if you want to click on it to jog my memory as well, I believe its special rule beyond the buff it gives is that it gets an inherent reroll as well.
No, it doesn't, but it gets +1 to hit against the closest eligible target.
Oh, that was it, okay.
Which does mean that against closest eligible, if you can game it, it's going to hit on 2s.
Yes.
With a reroll to hit.
Okay.
On a 2d3 shot blast weapon, I believe.
Yep, 2d3 blast, 24-inch, 12-4, d6, melt to 6.
That's a pretty reliable tank cracker.
Yeah, and I recall that it is not that expensive, if you wouldn't mind.
405, I believe.
Yeah, I remember it being very ballpark of a gallant to the point that I remembered I was like, if I'm going to take a gallant, I'll take an errant.
I'm kind of a fan.
Yeah.
But carrying on, we got the Crusader, which is like an errant, but without, I think, the +1 to hit because your abilities no longer affect yourself.
Correct.
Sad. If it remains stationary, it gets sustained, which is pretty good.
Yep, when it comes up, and then you get all the extra guns, which makes it more efficient if you're going to be spending stratagems.
What strats can affect your shooting?
2 CP +1 to wound against a vehicle monster.
Do you like get your CP back if you kill something?
Yes, if you kill it, you get a CP back. One CP.
Okay.
Not both.
Not both.
We're knights, not Necrons over here.
Right, yeah, my bad. Sorry. 1 CP +1 to wound would have been too much. Is this also the one you can't use again if you don't kill the thing?
Correct. It did used to be 1 CP.
I vaguely remember them getting nerfed in a way that made 0 sense.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so we got the Crusader, who shoots a bit harder and also doesn't remove a stratagem from your book occasionally. We've got the Gallant, who hits pretty dang hard, and his special rule is that he's -1 to be hit in combat, which is not as good as having a 4-pin vuln, but he's also 65 points cheaper than a Lancer.
Yeah, it's not nothing. I definitely have my preference, though.
Yeah. A Paladin, are they once per phase you reroll a hit, wound, or saving throw for
That
them?
was it. Okay.
Yes.
Once per phase?
Once per phase.
That is interesting. You're rolling a save. It makes him kind of tough, but I think his gun is unfortunately a little AP1 for me.
AP1 is a rough time.
It's a little too
it is a
AP1 for me.
lot of shots.
Yeah, it's D6 +3 rapid fire, D6 +3, right?
Yeah, with
It
blast.
is a lot of shots.
So against like a 10-man unit, it's 2d6 +8. And then they save on 2s. But other than that,
Yep.
it's a lot of damn shots though. We've got the Preceptor. Is that remotely playable?
I think it's a leadership buff on its thing. I remember it being not goodly.
Start of the battle, it picks an enemy unit to reroll hits against.
Yeah. No, I don't think the Preceptor's it.
The Valiant can't Overwatch, so I'm going to
Correct.
save it the
Costs
sadness.
too much.
Yeah. We've got a Knight Warden, which every time makes a ranged attack that targets an enemy unit, other than monsters and vehicles, it gets death wounds.
Yep.
Which is
Sad.
sad.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you what most of these do if you want. Unfortunately, there's not always much.
Is the Megara? I remember the Megara.
They changed its weapon profiles to the point that you're not going to recognize it.
That is very sad.
Yep.
Okay. So what's the one? I remember there was a 412 Knight you
Castigator
liked.
was the one that was a little bit better because his bondsman ability was amazing on him.
Right. Yeah, they need to undo that nerf.
That
like
has to go.
post haste.
Yeah,
Immediately.
So you could still try to do some interesting things with this. So we've got a couple options. If we wanted to include another big knight, I think the Castigator is still an above average knight. If you want, I can kind of break down what it does. Its ability is a +1 AP and sustained hits to the thing it buffs. So that takes a Helverin to AP2 sus1, which is a significant increase in Helverin damage output, which is kind of nice.
It is.
If you want to get more shooting, and I actually don't mind maybe a Castigator and 1 or 2 Helverins, could you actually do me a favor and pull up the enhancements for this? There's an enhancement that gives the bearer the ability to give out a second bondsman instead of, as you give it 2 instead of 1.
Oh, there's 5. Interesting.
There are 5 enhancements. Yeah, this is the only army with 5. And I need to know if it's Questoris only or if it's anyone. Because I know some of them, like the Armor of Contempt is Questoris only.
It's Questoris only. Each time the bearer uses its bondsman, you select an additional friendly armature.
That one is Questoris only?
Yes.
That would have been really nice on a castigator.
That would have been. That's really dumb, but yeah.
Okay.
What about the I know you like the Atropos.
Yes. The Atropos is the Titan Slayer one, which is funny because it's the one that didn't get hurt because its bondsman ability only matters into Titanic stuff. So
Which doesn't really
So the
matter.
fact that it never came up, the fact that it never comes up are the same thing. Because it itself is quite good. Basically, it I think it's +1 to like hit and wound against like monsters. It's +1 to hit against monsters. And I think it's +1 to wound against Titanic or
Yeah,
something.
I just looked at it. That is the rule.
Yep. Which does get
Or
you
towering.
another or towering.
I don't know when you'd be towering but not Titanic, but
I'm sure there's a situation I can't think of. I know you can be Titanic not towering. I've never seen it the other way. Bane blades
I
are
know
towering.
the Bane blades are one of those, not the other.
Yeah, they're Titanic not towering.
Got it.
Because they're short.
Got it.
They're just big.
Which means they can't overwatch and also can't see through terrain.
Correct.
That sucks.
Yeah. So, are we looking to break the mold at all regarding the Knights? The Atropos, unfortunately, I thought was competitive before, but it didn't go down in points when, frankly, other things did. So we could, though, take an Atropos just to get another melee knight in while maintaining every knight is good at shooting.
It's mostly melee, you would say?
It's more shooting than melee, but it is melee capable.
Yeah, that looks pretty melee capable.
Yeah, I wouldn't describe it as amazing in melee. It actually usually uses the big attack, not the sweep, because the big attack is 6 attacks, which is more than average, still a good strength AP damage and sustained one, so it's good crowd control.
And it gets +1 to hit in combat too against monsters and vehicles, which does matter.
It will pop a tank and a rhino in combat quite reliably if it has reroll a hit and wound.
Mm-hmm. I like it. I think it's pretty good.
We could look at replacing the Lancer with it. It has a 5-up invuln passive, so it is combat 2, and it does maintain the fact that we have guns on everyone if that's one of the things we want to address.
It's where I would go, but I'm not really a knight player.
Let's put it in. Let's put the Atropos in.
Are you saying instead of...
I'm saying instead of the Lancer because I personally suspect that the Gallant is getting axed.
Oh yeah, he's not going to be in this list for long.
I want to say it is 465?
It's 440.
440. Oh, that's not bad.
So the Gallant, unfortunately,
Going away?
yeah, it's not making it. I think we're both on the same page there, although you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I unfortunately think that the Gallant isn't bringing enough. If I were to bring a cheap knight, I believe that the Errant is the most interesting one. It also gives advance and shoot, which is kind to one armager, which is kind of useful for having one Warglaive just whip around a corner and get in melt range with all this stuff.
Yeah, because really hit and wound is pretty decent on an armager.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, right, we made sure every knight has shooting. Do we want to make sure every knight has combat? Because like we could cut the Crusader down to an Errant, and then every knight shoots and fights. But the Crusader is a fire base, which is nice.
Yeah. If we were to do the every knight does both phases, I actually think I would go double Atropos.
Is that something you want to go, or is
I think I want to leave the Crusader in for now. They're very similar points. If this list is 2005 accidentally, I'm going to call that a sign. But until then, I think we're good at that. So let's now look at enhancements really fast.
Okay.
The 2 enhancements that to me stand out the most are the Teleporter Knight, which is Mysterious Guardian, and the Armor of Contempt equivalent. But because the Armor of Contempt equivalent is unfortunately only for Questoris Knights, it doesn't end up getting taken as often. And then there's the Banner of Macarius, which is the sticky objectives.
I like Banner of Macarius Triumphant. I mean, you have Inquisitorial Henchmen, but it's good like when you push, tag an objective, move on.
Yeah, I still like having the idea. I like the idea of having a sticky objective.
Yeah, for sure. Banner of Macarius Triumphant is any model.
And that could go on the Atropos. If you were going to do a teleport, it would be on the Crusader.
Yeah, for sure. Is that something you want to bake in and see where we're at?
I think we start with that and then we'd look at how it goes. At a bare minimum, I think Banner is nice. I think it is more cuttable. I think Mysterious Guardian does really want to be there.
Yeah, it fundamentally redesigns what that unit can do.
Yep.
Because your opponent has to worry about getting shot constantly.
Yes, I've learned through many years of playing this game that if you give the opponent an option between being shot and not being shot, some of them will make the mistake of choosing to get shot, but a lot of them will try to hide. And sometimes you need a Mysterious Guardian to fix that.
I'm going to put on Banner of Macarius Triumphant, and it very well might leave the list.
That's fine. I think it's a very reasonable thing to be considering. So I'm very down to have it in for now.
Okay. So
Banner of
let's see
Mysterious
where.
Triumphant.
I managed to not mess that up. All right, cool. So with that, adding Banner Macarius Triumphant on, we currently have 385.
Okay. We could just call that an assassin and 2 armigers.
I'm not against it. I'm not against it. 2 armigers is 300. That leaves us with 85. It's an unfortunate. That is 5 points over.
Which could be how a Crusader becomes an Atropos and a Calidus.
Yeah, I mean, the Calexis is not bad for 85, but it's definitely the second one I take.
Yes. The awkward part is that I don't want to run into a situation where I can't kill 10 guardsmen. Which if you take an Atropos, 2 Atropos, I worry about my ability to kill 10 guardsmen at once.
Yeah, you kill like 6 of them stone dead.
Oh yeah, no, like every
Big
time.
Yeah, like those guys are going away, but not all of them.
I do personally find that having no instances of kill 10 trash models, like 10 cultists, 10 gargoyles, 10 guardsmen. I don't need to be able to kill 10 space marines in one shot, although the Crusader can do that. It doesn't always, but it could. I find not being able to kill 10 guardsmen is like the floor. I've got to be able to do that.
Not ideal, for sure.
We could change one of these Warglaives into a Helverin, I believe, because I believe a Helverin is 10 points cheaper.
You are correct. And a Moirax, which I think is useless from what I remember.
It's not what we're taking.
Yeah, is 10 points more for
no reason.
Some reason.
No reason.
I mean, we could go Warglaive, Helverin, and then take, I believe, just take a Calidus on top of this.
Yeah, and by my math, that's 1995?
I believe so. I don't think we need 2 squads of henchmen.
Fair, but I don't know what else I'm doing with.
I'm trying to get to 2 assassins.
Okay. What's the pitch?
The pitch,
because if we put the Calidus in, we're at 1995. So if we cut a henchman, we're at 45 points free.
Right, we need 40. Not Mysterious Guardian.
We need 30 to get an assassin.
An assassin for 30.
40 to get the better assassin.
That would be Banner.
Yes.
We're not cutting both henchman units. One of them needs to hold our home objective.
Yes.
I don't know if that's better or not. I mean, we do have a Helverin that can hold our home objective, but it's going to be staring at the back of a wall most of the time.
Yeah, I figure you leave the henchman there and the Helverin pushes as part of the natural expansion and just says, I have a longer range, I'm not trying to get close.
Yep, the Atropos goes up the middle, Sticky's the center, the Helverin goes to the natural expansion, holds it, fires down range at your opponent.
Yep.
Henchmen stand on the home objective that is Sticky, because you start there. Yeah, that seems good. Maybe you take henchmen, one squad goes in reserves and does that's signals or something.
Generally what I do is I put one in reserves and wait till I draw an engage, homers, or behind that's necessary.
So we're thinking Warglav,
Helverin.
Warglaive, Helverin, and a Calidus. And that should be 1995. I'll put it in the app to make sure.
That's completely correct.
Boop, 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 boop. I like the Atropos. It seems pretty good. But yeah, you definitely hate to have your only way of killing guardsmen be tank shock and then punch them.
Yeah, and it's just if a strung out guardsman unit becomes incredibly difficult to kill for a knight army, which is just a...
That's dumb. You don't want to be there.
You just don't want someone to notice that and then just burn you with it.
Yeah, no, that's bad. It's bad is what it is. I would love to get a squad of Voidsmen at Arms, just have more models to string out to screen further. Yeah. But we don't have 10 points, we have 5. And I don't love it enough that I want to mess with the big boys.
Basically, yeah.
I'm not going to get 5 points so that I can slightly make my henchmen better, in my opinion, to...
make the Crusader worse. Because the Crusader and the Atropos do different roles, and I kind of want one of each.
Yeah, I like this list. This list seems dope.
I think this is what I'd run.
All right.
Okay.
Seems pretty good. Next up...
Let's do it.
We've got Imperial Guard, Astra Militarum.
Love it.
Would you mind going through here, and I will go look up any comments?
Absolutely. So we have Lord Solar Leontis, of course.
Obviously.
A Tonk Commander.
Tunk.
With Demolisher Cannon, all the good things, and Grand Strategist, which lets him give an extra order. Then we have a Platoon Command Squad, a Regimental Engineer, 10 Infantry, 20 Cadian Shock Troops, so 10 and 10, 10 Catachan, 1 Hellhound, which is used to strip cover, a generic Leman Russ, a Leman Russ Exterminator, 1 Taurox, 1 Cyclops Demolition Vehicle, 2 Scout Sentinels, and a Shadow Sword.
Yes. So comments from Westy, whose name apparently is Noah. Hello, Noah. Hey, this list is for an upcoming GT. I have a lot more tanks. No Manticores other than the one in the list. I also have 2 Earthshakers. With all the vehicles in the meta, would it be smart to run my Shadow Sword?
A quick question, is there a Manticore on this list as well?
There is.
Okay, no problem. So there's a Manticore in addition.
Could have sworn I put that in, but I suppose I did not.
So, well, luckily that's the right cost. So let's talk about the Shadow Sword first. So the Shadow Sword does many things well, and it also has some problems. And I think we should weigh both of these.
Yes.
So the Shadow Sword does shoot very hard. However, it is simultaneously a titanic, non-towering.
That thing we were just talking about.
Yeah, no, I didn't actually realize that was foreshadowing, but it was, and so now I can say that we've planned it all along.
I was very sneaky about it. I was
I know.
maybe I can.
It is very large, and therefore it is very difficult to get it wholly in a terrain feature. It's also relatively wide, and so will sometimes struggle with terrain.
Yeah. So a Land Raider, for example, big model. Big model, tough to move around. Same with like a Lord of Skulls. I have played with both. You can make them work. In GW terrain, they're totally fine.
Yep.
On WTC terrain, you can make them work to varying levels of success. But the terrain on some formats can be worse, some formats can be better. For a model the size of a Shadow Sword, there is no longer a good terrain format for them. They are way too large for the game of 40k generally, and they're going to run into terrain issues no matter what terrain. Unless you play on Planet Bowling Ball at your local, you're going to run into issues moving this thing around the table and getting line of sight, period.
Yep. Yeah, and because the Shadow Sword only threatens one line at a time and it's so large it's hard to rotate it around terrain, if it finds a good firing lane, it can be happy and it can be effective. Like we've seen sometimes super heavy tanks do actually do well in tournaments. I think that it needs... I wish we knew the terrain format that Noah was playing on here, frankly.
It's possible that it might be just like a local one, right? Or it's an upcoming GT, so we don't know.
Yeah, unfortunately.
GTs usually do post a mission pack.
Yep.
If you are in the chat, please let us know what tournament you're going to. We can try and design this around that mission pack.
So what the Shadow Sword is, just to kind of let people know, is that its main gun is D3 plus 1 shots blast at strength 24, AP 5, damage 12. It is blast heavy, range is yes, and it's ballistic skill 4.
AP 5?
Correct.
How many shots is it? D3 plus 1 blast?
D3 plus 1 blast. It has no inherent rerolls, and... Oh, there's more. And its special rule is that when it targets a monster or vehicle, its Volcano Lance gains devastating wounds.
Sure. That's
the oh, Westy is in the chat. Westy, do you happen to know in advance what the terrain is going to be like? Otherwise, we're going to try to find out.
I'm gonna look it up.
Unfortunately for the Shadow Sword, devastating wounds on an AP 5 cannon is just not relevant.
This Helldiver, weirdly enough, is a very tough term to Google right now.
Yep.
Great game, but it's making this GT a little tough.
Yeah. If you want, I can look it up on Best Ghost Pairings.
That's probably a good idea, yeah. Okay. Yeah, because even when I put in Warhammer40k, Helldivers GT, Hawaii, I'm getting talking about sending people to Malevelon Creek, so you know.
No, we will figure this out. Anyways, I'm unfortunately mildly opposed to the Shadow Sword. It has 4 las cannons, 5 twin heavy bolters as well. I believe it also has a smattering of stubbers and things that are like just there. There's a lot of little fire coming out of it for las cannons. It does shoot hard if it gets to shoot.
Yes.
D3 plus 1 shots, ballistic skill 4. It can be ordered by Leontis.
Okay, so the engines here gives it, I remember it gives it an invul, does not give it +1 to hit like everything else.
So yeah, because that would be... Twos.
So, but it'll hit on 3s.
Yes.
It's heavy, so it'll hit on 2s if it stands still?
I mean,
it's not. It's not going to do that. Like, it has to move to get line of sight. I hear you.
Yeah. And where was it? It was Hawaii?
Hawaii.
Okay. Oahu, okay. And we'll make it within 100 miles of that island. We'll put 2 months on it. All right.
Look for 40K.
Yep. And we're going to find it. Oh, did I need to? Yep, that's my fault. Excluding online events. We're going to find out what the terrain is here. Other Realms, 40K, Hell Dive GT on April 20th.
That sounds like it.
Yeah. Okay, we've got a link.
We've got a
Let's
player
see
pack.
if we can find out what the terrain is going to be here.
Okay. So while we're doing that, you have to design your list for the terrain format. Otherwise, you have to just take guesses, right? You have to guess in the dark what you're going to be able to do and try and hedge your bets. If you know what the terrain is, you can plan. It is on the 20th, so I think that is the correct one.
I would assume so, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, how many Hell Dive? Yeah, I think Hell Dive in Hawaii has to be it.
That's got it. That's got to be it.
Yeah, it's on the 20th, so we got it.
Cool.
All right. Additional models. I am not going to lie. I do not see any mentions. I was really hoping there's just going to be an answer here. I do not see any mentions of a terrain format in one direction or another.
Yeah, if you want to talk list, I can scroll through and see if there's...
So here's the reality of the situation, is that if the Shadow Sword does get to find a firing lane and shoot, it does shoot very hard and it can justify its points cost because, yeah, if people do have tanks and then there's a Shadow Sword and the Shadow Sword gets to shoot the tanks, that's awesome. However, there is always the chance that that is not what happens.
I see.
And so, if you run into a dense terrain, or like if it's a player-placed terrain with a lot of terrain, they can just set it up so that the thing can't move.
Yeah, there is nothing here about what terrain format they're using.
Fair enough.
It's possible it's GW, it's possible it's homebrew, it's possible it's player-placed.
If you know it's GW, you can probably move and fire the Shadow Sword.
It's not easy. I've seen it be played on GW. It's not an easy thing to do. There's often one preset place you can deploy it where it gets to move.
Yeah, my general experience with big models like this is even if it can work, it usually is not optimal. But let's also just consider every single guard player wants to put the Shadow Sword down.
Of course.
So as long as it's playable, I think you can kind of make the call, am I willing to take a Shadow Sword? I think objectively, no matter the terrain format, it is better to not take a Shadow Sword.
It's the sad, I think that's the truth of it, yeah.
But do you want to write the list with the Shadow Sword or without it?
Well, this is for...
Westy.
This is for Westy. I want to write the list with the Shadow Sword, but I also know in my heart that it is just not optimal.
Yeah, but that's okay. That doesn't have to be no, though.
It's true. It is up to Westy. Westy can keep it or drop it. We can try and make it work the best possible, but you are giving up percentage points.
Yep. All right.
It's
Westy,
up to them.
let us know what you think.
The rest of the list, while they decide that...
The rest of the list, we have a tank commander, which I love. Lord Solar of the platoon command squad, a thing I love. I assume that that's joining to an infantry squad. I see Katachan that I assume are going in a Torox because that's the only transport and that'll get it scout. The Cadians look to be mucking around on foot. And then Scout Sentinels, love that. Manticore, love that. Cyclops, shockingly good. The main thing that I object to here is the Lehman Russ. Not that there is a Russ hull. I specifically do not like the Lehman Russ.
There's some loadouts on some tanks here that I think could use some work. Yeah. Autocannon Sentinels, probably not where it's at.
Yeah, I would prefer a las cannon, although bluntly I found the weapon of the Scout Sentinel to be not...
less than impactful.
Well, I mean, actually, yeah, it really is. Like, I used to have plasma cannons, and I switched them to las cannons because they have the same number of shots. So
because you roll one on the D3,
it's just one shot.
Fair
Sometimes
enough.
It's heavy one blast, right? It's the guard life.
You have a hunter killer missile, and that wants to shoot at a tank. So why not have a second thing that shoots at a tank?
I switched to las cannons, but that's not that big a deal. Like if they were just built with autocannons, it's not a huge problem.
Yeah,
I'd still run a Scout Sentinel regardless of the gun. Frankly, I would pay the points for a Scout Sentinel with a hunter killer and no ranged weapon, and it wouldn't actually change my opinion of the tank that much.
Yeah, you just see somebody and you're like, hey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to put las cannon. If yours are assembled with autocannons, it's not worth ripping them off for.
Yep.
What about Exterminator 3 heavy bolters?
I love the Exterminator. If you can change the sponsons, I am a big fan of just multi-meltas and a las cannon.
How do you feel about tank commander with plasma?
Personally prefer on the tank commander. I don't mind the plasma because the tank commander usually doesn't want to get like giga close, but also he's a demolisher cannon. Anything that's not a tank commander, I think, should just be multi-melta las cannon, especially the Exterminator because it's not packing a blast weapon. For what it's worth, though, I actually think that Lehman Russ number 2 should be a demolisher, which is a little bit more expensive, but I think that we're going to find the points for it. And that'll
200.
200 flat, yep. Yeah, because it's 5 less than a tank commander with the same weapon. And yeah, and of course, everyone who can take 100 killer missiles and a stubber for free is taking the free things.
Yes.
These are we're only really marking choices.
Okay.
So we've got a lot of the good synergy things that I like here. I think I want more transports if we're taking these Cadians, or I want to not have the Cadians.
Okay. Which direction do you lean?
My leaning is that I actually think it is pretty cool to take like 2 Catachan in Chimera packages.
I like that.
I think I'd be willing to cut the Torox and Acadian Shock Troop for a Acadian Shock Troop. Sorry, for both Acadian Shock Troops for a Catachan and 2 Chimeras. Which that might be 5 points more than we had before. It might be 5 less. I'd have to double check the math.
We're already over by a little bit. We'll have to figure it out.
We're gonna have to finagle it anyways.
So why do you like that package?
So, a couple things here. One, it is a shocking amount of flamers in a cheap thing. Because the Chimera is open topped and comes with 2 heavy flamers, and then the Catachans come with 2 flamers, it does rumble up and put 4d6 torrent auto hits on someone in addition to 12 lasgun shots and 6 stubber shots and 100 kill missile.
Yeah.
It is a stunning amount of dice for a transport. It is also scout move, which helps a lot because they pass the scout move on to the Chimera. And then it is just a bunch of OC2 bodies that are being preserved for when they're needed most because they're in a Chimera. Okay. And bluntly, shooting at Chimeras when there are Scout Sentinels, Hellhounds, and Russ running around is not usually what people make time for.
No, definitely not. We have not gotten a response from Westy on the Shadow Sword. I think for Baneblade chassis, I would rather have either of the ones that have more shots. Forgive me, I do not know their names.
Yeah, I could run through it and recognize it. I want to say the Bane Sword was the one I liked.
I think there's 2. I think there's like the Bane Sword and like the Hellhammer or something.
I do remember there were 2 that were fairly interesting.
Yep, the Bane Sword is one of them.
Okay.
And then I think it's the Hellhammer or something.
I can see it.
Hellhammer Cannon, certainly not that. No,
I find it incredible, Jack, that, like a year after we last read these data sheets, you remember that the Bane Sword was the interesting one. I'm impressed. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. I think it's actually the Storm Sword. The Storm Sword, I think, is the other one.
Okay, so they're both swords.
Yeah, Storm Sword is the other interesting one. It is D6 plus 6 at 48-inch range, with 48 and 1,000-inch range are the same thing.
Yep.
D6 plus 6 shots, strength 16, AP 4, damage D6 plus 2, ignores cover blast.
Oh, AP 4 ignores cover. That is
We're gaming.
The same as AP 5 for a tank of that size.
I would so much rather have that over a Shadow Sword, even shooting at other Shadow Swords.
Yeah, no, that's way better.
It's wildly better. I think it's more expensive. It is significantly more expensive. It's $495.
Oh man, they really are pricing these things to stay.
Yeah, I was like, whoa.
Westy did speak up in the chat though and says, if needs be, we can cut it.
Okay.
So I'm then in favor of, alas, the cut.
Yes.
Westy, if we happen to be inserting tanks that do not line up, let us know and we're happy to do it. If you have a third Russell, though, Jack knows where I'm about to go.
There's going to be 3 Russ in this list.
Well, there already
four.
are 3.
I would like
a 4th.
But the thing I will say about the Bane Sword Hammer Siege Cannon is that, like, you can roll... everyone does this, right? At home, rolling it out into different profiles or whatever, and you're like, oh, this is so much fun. I just blew up a tank. I just blew up a Land Raider. I just blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
You're not actually going to do that, right? You're most of the time, you're going to be spent stuck behind terrain or shooting at like Terminators or whatever. You're not going to be hitting your preferred target more than once a game tops.
Yeah, and if you are, awesome, but then any of these super heavies will be good.
Yes.
Okay. Manticore, even 1, is staying in.
Yes.
He has access to Earthshakers. 2 Earthshakers. I would personally lean towards putting them in.
I assume those are basilisks?
Earthshaker Carriage is what I assume Earthshaker means.
That is something that we can get a confirmation on.
Earthshaker Carriage, though, is quite solid. Where I think I want to go with this is more mech, more stuff.
4 more rust halls.
All right, so Westy is good on rust, so we can add another rust. This is excellent. I'm of the opinion that we add another Demolisher, and then we add another, like, honestly, what I'm envisioning here is this list is not trying to do combat. We're not going to take this and then decide to add Bulgrin in or something like that. What I like about this, and what I want, is a lot of oppressive guns that are going to stop people from standing in front of you. And then I want cheap dudes in transports whose lives I am in no way attached to, and I want them to stop my opponent from scoring points.
Yes.
And if my opponent wants to stop the Catachan Parade, that is just scouting and disembarking and OC3ing onto their objective, because
OC3?
OC3.
Oh, because you order
them to be +1 OC, obviously.
Oh, that's so stupid.
Boink. Yeah. No, if my opponent wants to stop that from happening, I want it to be a trade-off of, okay, but now you have to touch the guns. And I want all of the guns that we are shoving up to be things that get tagged and still fire.
Yes. So just to be clear, your game plan is pretty simple. Your opponent does not get to hold objectives in midfield. You're going to do that by either pointing guns at them or literally sprinting random dudes onto the objective to take them away on repeat.
Yes.
That's it. They're all going to die. Who cares, right? You're in the guard. You know, that's how it works.
Yeah, they got 15 hours, right? And we all know the rules.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in favor of just add another Chimera Catachan.
Oh, I love that package. That package is so good.
And we do have the firepower stacking things here to make this extremely painful, because we do currently have an Exterminator, which gives you +1 AP against a target. Then we have the glorious Hellhound of Ignores Cover.
We don't have Creed.
We don't have Creed.
Creed would be the final form where you order a mortar to make the rest of your army +1 AP against something.
Let's also consider that Regimental Engine Seer feels mildly redundant at the moment.
Correct. He was kind of part of the cost of the
yeah, he was just the 45-point extra that the Shadow Sword brings, but no longer.
Yeah, he's the guy who tricks you into thinking that a Shadow Sword is 440 and not 485.
So Creed gives a free stratagem, and she gives some extra orders. I am in favor of this. Frankly, I just think you do.
She just stands by herself in the back and orders Leontis's unit with the infantry squad and the platoon command squad to fire a mortar. This is why you take a mortar. Fire a mortar at a target. Do you have to hit?
No.
Nope. If you just go, those guys over there, and you fire like a mortar at them, it doesn't matter if you do any damage, doesn't matter anything. The rest of your army gets +1 AP against it. That is a massive buff.
Yes, and fun fact with the platoon command squad and infantry squad, it is actually 2 mortars, which is not like crazy damage, but it is one of those things where you might as well hold still, and then you can order them with Creed to, you know.
And then Eldar Sad.
Yeah, and then you can like actually just kill a couple like trashy like models.
Yep.
And it just stops you from having to put too much indirect into it. What does this currently put us at? Because I believe that we have some points left at this stage.
75.
75 from this point? Okay.
That's with Creed in.
That's with Creed. Okay, perfect. I was going to say like, ooh, that's down to 20 then. So to get orders on the dudes in transports, there are 2 options. One, you have someone else in the transport, and they get out, because then you can issue an order after you disembark. Or, here's another option, you can come in from reserves and do that. Or, here's the third option, you can spend 1 command point in your opponent's command phase to issue an order. So at that point, it would only affect their primary, not your secondaries, but you could have Leontis toss a 24-inch OC, +1 OC, and you'll know if it's relevant or not, because you can just do it in the command phase. We have 75 left.
Yes.
Are Gaunt's Ghost exactly 100?
I know what you're going to do in that case. That Cyclops is looking very sad, but Gaunt's Ghosts, who I usually support, are exactly 100.
That would do it right there.
That would do it right there.
And that's not us putting in a any of the Earthshakers, to be clear.
It isn't. We can see what that would require. But also, I'm in favor of supporting taking Gaunt's Ghosts.
I do like Gaunt's Ghosts.
I've read every book.
There
All
you
right.
go.
So we got Gaunt's Ghosts. We've got. I mean, this is what happens when you don't take 3 Manticores, right? Do we even want the 1?
Are you about to suggest we just take another rest and call it a day?
Kinda, yeah.
I still like the Manticore for just like for just chipping one thing out of line of sight, making them not comfortable leaving 5 scouts on their home objective and nothing else.
Let's see, the thing is, against a Manticore, I'm just super comfortable putting 5 scouts on my home objective. Like, what are you going to do? Roll more than a 2 one-shot count?
It'll get there.
Okay.
Just make it AP4 and then start gaming.
I guess you are, in fact, gaming at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, you could kill all 5 at that point, which
Jack,
maybe.
do you ever want to live your fantasies of not giving a Sanguinary Guard and cover a save?
No, I'm usually on the other side of that.
What about AP5 indoor cover?
That sounds bad. I get a save. I'll armor contempt.
There you go.
How much is an Earthshaker carriage?
An Earthshaker carriage off memory is 120. So if we wanted to add 2 of them, it would cost 240.
Costs 60. So we could get Scout Sentinel, drop the Manticore for 2 Earthshakers just to get the slowdown.
It does add the slowdown. I don't think that's as necessary because we have move blocks 5 ever.
That's true. Move blocks sometimes may not present themselves, or
They may not.
be tough to set up.
But then the reality of the Earthshakers and the problem with them, in my opinion, is that they're ballistic skill 5.
You do have orders.
You do. So they go to ballistic skill 4 very easily because then Creed does it.
And they're heavy.
And they're heavy.
So you're going to hit on 4s. The Manticore hits on 2s, but has less than half the shots.
Yeah.
Does reroll to hit against 5 model units, which is not nothing.
They're also better shots.
They are better shots. They are for sure. But you do get the slowdown on 2 different targets.
We could do it that way. We could have a Manticore and 2 Scout Sentinels turn into 2 Earthshakers.
It could also be the Exterminator.
Oh, no, I like the Exterminator a lot.
You like the Exterminator? Okay.
Yeah, it's just has just enough rules that I actually am just fond of it.
Yeah, the Exterminator Hellhound is such a decent combo that I don't really want to cut
And even if
either
they
half.
split up, it's totally fine.
No. What I mean is Hellhound shoots something, now Exterminator actually scary. Like, there's a bunch of ways to make the Exterminator's gun actually better than AP1.
Yes.
Ursula Creed can fire a spotting flare at it. There's various ways to do it.
Yeah. I am...
If you like where we're
I
at,
honestly
then-
kind of like it where we're at.
I mean, this list is kind of rad.
Yeah, I like the quantity of tanks we have. Really what I'm looking at and thinking the most heretically about is what if we replace Lord Solar's infantry bonanza with another tank commander and just call it a day?
The whole kit and caboodle,
Yeah, because like Lord Solar
plus a platoon command squad, plus an infantry squad, is just another tank commander.
is 245. That's a tank commander and 40 points.
I'm not against it. I'm really not.
I like Lord Solar though. He's cool. It does give you that cool thing to hold your backfield, which is actually kind of nice. And
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he isn't like that necessary here. But to be honest, if you don't have him, then the Creed starts to fall apart. You don't have a mortar back there.
And then also the tank commander doesn't get any orders because only Leo can order tank commanders. So I think we keep him in.
Yeah, I think so. He's just a little on the. He's actually a lot on the expensive side, but I think he's worth.
I think I'd send it right like this.
Okay.
This is 2K on the dot.
This is 2K on the nose.
Well, in that case, we're not changing anything.
All right.
Send it.
Send it.
All right. So now we've got one list left. Bing! Grey Knights.
We've got the GK.
All right. Well, if you'd like, I can do the read-ins while you pull up any notes we got.
That's right. All right, cool.
Awesome. So we've got a Grey Knight Strike Force. First, we have a Grand Master with Sigil of Exigence, which is an enhancement that lets you teleport once again when you get shot. A second Grand Master with Inescapable Wrath. And correct me if I'm wrong, is the Grand Master the character that lets you ignore modifiers?
Correct.
Okay.
Lets you ignore modifiers and get a free strat once a game to one of them.
Cool. So one of the two gets a free strat. It's not each one gets one free strat a game. Good to know. Inescapable Wrath is the
+1 to charge.
+1 charge. And then we've got 10 Brotherhood Terminators with all the good things. 5 strikes, another 5 strikes. 10 Paladins with many side cannons and a banner. 3 Nemesis Dread Knights and a Calidus Assassin.
It actually, on reflection, the strikes do not have an incinerator.
Okay.
Richard prefers the incinerator. I prefer to not have it.
That's fair.
Because you give up your melee weapon, and I like being able to fight in melee. So you can go either direction. I tend to lean away from having the incin.
Seems fair. All right, so this is where we end up. 20 Terminators, 3 Dread Knights, 2 characters to lead the Terminators, and 2 Strike Squads and an Assassin. Jack, what's your first thought here?
So my first thought is that I don't want 2 Grandmasters. I think this list is pretty damn close to being good.
Okay.
Hold on.
Gesundheit.
All right. Whew. I'm just getting excited over here. So I think this list is pretty damn close to being good, to be honest with you. I mean, the notes are Jack Harpster Grey Knight list, looking for middle ground between 30 Terminators and Dread Knight spam. Not sure if there's enough to discuss with number of units, but most undecided on characters after watching your character theory video. Check out Jack Theory. Currently, 2 Grandmasters for ignore modifier spam, but could change easily. With only 2 Terminator bricks, is one of each best.
I'm surprised that Terminators and Paladins are so similar in cost.
They used to be less similar in cost.
Okay.
It used to be Paladins were 510 and Terminators were 450. So they used to be 60 points diff. Now they're 30. And they each have their roles, right?
Yeah.
Terminators are OC2 base, goes to OC3 with an Ancient Banner, which is wild. They regen a model every turn, they get lethal hits on the charge. That's their bag. Paladins hit on 2s, are -1 to wound if your strength is higher than their toughness, and they're being led by a character. Actually, no, they don't have to be led by a character. Theirs is
they just
unique.
have it, yeah.
Theirs is unique. So they hit on 2s in everything, shooting and combat, have the same number of attacks, and are -1 to wound, and can come with 5 heavy weapons. Because you get 2 per 5, and then 1 on the banner.
Wild.
It's
So you
pretty
get
good.
more guns, you're hit more reliably, you lose the lethal access, you get a -1 to wound sometimes, usually when you need it. Instead of healing, it costs 30 points more.
Yes. They're only
it's
OC1,
comparable.
goes to OC2.
Yeah, it's comparable. I don't have a strong opinion of this one is the best.
What I've usually found is that you want the right tool for the right scenario.
So one of each?
One of each. I like, in the 30 Terminator variant, I took 2 Terminators, 1 Paladin. I also think that Sigil is gross on 2 different things. 1, a unit with shooting. Because you just go in, shoot, then they shoot you back, you leave.
Yep.
It's gross on a unit with shooting, and it's also gross on a 10-man unit of Terminators. So, Paladins.
Yeah.
So, Sigil plus Grandmaster plus Paladins is a combination.
Yeah, we love that, huh?
Like, it's so good, man. It's so good. The Grandmaster, making them ignore modifiers, means they ignore Armor of Contempt, they ignore -1 to hit, and minus damage.
Sounds like you're going to try to tell me that the Grandmaster with Sigil is the one who's staying.
You read my mind.
Okay, so you don't like 2 Grandmasters. I think that's reasonable. Inescapable Wrath feels like a nice enhancement you take when you have random points, not like a mandatory.
If you have open points, you 100% take it. It is 15 points plus 1 to charge.
Cool.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
But you know what's better?
Is it +3 to charge?
It's +3 to charge.
There you go.
So, yes. So there's a dynamic in Grey Knights where your opponent has to trigger mists for you to start getting the ball rolling on the board state. Like, you really want them to trigger mists, so you have the ability to be dynamic. Otherwise, your units just kind of either stay where they are or Deep Strike 9 away and try and do stuff.
Yep.
So that's not ideal. The way to break that open is to have Drago. Because Drago just gets a charge. He'll fail it most of the time. I've been on the receiving end of that, but
I've literally never seen him fail a charge.
you should watch more of my games. So he gets the charge, and what that means is even when your opponent sits back, doesn't trigger anything, you can still get the ball rolling when necessary.
Yeah.
If your opponent sits back and doesn't trigger anything, usually that's fine. Occasionally it isn't. So Drago is the stall breaker. He also hits pretty dang hard. He gives you protection against mortals, which does not apply to devastating wounds for a reason I cannot fathom. But he's pretty cool.
Yes.
He's pretty coolio, and I like him. He also got a pretty huge buff recently, where it used to be that he only applied when he came out of strategic reserves, which is either a missed deep strike or a deep strike normally, which means you couldn't do anything on turn 1 with him.
Yep.
But now you can. Now you can deploy him on the board, pick him up, drop him down, charge, because it can apply out of the teleport strike thing.
How much does Drago cost?
125. So we are going to have to find some points. Not the easiest thing in the world to do here.
Yeah. So let's look at what we've got. There are 3 Dread Knights. Those, in my opinion, are insane. They will not be getting cut.
They're quite good. I like them. The 6 Dread Knight thing is its own archetype.
Yep.
Has its own problems and strengths.
Yep. Not suggesting we switch to 6 at the moment, but the 3 that we've got are surely not the things being cut.
No, they're not.
The 2 10-man Terminator units, you like one of each. I think that sounds very reasonable the way you defended it, so I say those are probably staying, which means we really only could cut either an enhancement that you just described as absolutely amazing, or one of the 2 strike squads or Calidus Assassin, and then try to replace those with things that make the points work.
Yes. So let me finish putting this in,
sure.
And we'll see. Our points should be 2015, but I'm going to see if maybe we had some points left over in the list and see
if
where
it
we're
wasn't
at.
exactly 2K before, a fair question.
So we are left with, unfortunately, we're 15 points over. So that means we have to redesign what we're doing here. Not the hardest thing in the world. I think the pretty easy decision is 1 unit of strikes goes by, boys.
Yep.
Unfortunate.
That means we have 110.
Yeah. Like we could cut them off the Calidus and then replace the Calidus with something, but the Calidus ties in so well with what the rest of the list is doing.
Yeah, the Calidus is great.
I don't want to cut it. Now we could go, the list that I personally would play right now if I were playing Grey Knights, just so you know, is Grandmaster, Drago, same thing. All of this the same, but the Calidus would become a Grandmaster, and so it's 4 Dread Knights.
A Grandmaster in Dread Knight.
In Dread Knight.
Cool.
In Dread Knight. But I think we're going to try and give this list a little more mission play, rather than having a 4th Dread Knight hull. The Grandmaster is just flat, not as good as a regular Nemesis one, Nemesis Dread Knight. And the fact that Nemesis Dread Knight is cheaper means that
and
you definitely take 3
You
before.
find the difference between Paladins and Terminators and having one of each important enough that you wouldn't trim Paladins to Terminators to make points fit. You would say it's better to cut a strike squad and then have 110 to work with.
Yes, I would. The reason for that is Paladins are unique in what they do with Sigil. If you put Sigil on either a Grandmaster in Dread Knight, which costs a bunch of points we don't have, or you put it on the Terminators, you just don't get value out of it in the same way. And it is gross when you do get that cycle going of, I'm going to drop 3 inches away. If you don't move, I won't miss, but then you can't shoot me. But if you do move, I'm going to miss deep strike back in, and you still can't shoot me. So with that, I think we want to include a little more mission play. And I think what that looks like to me is another assassin.
Yep. So 110, we easily can get another assassin.
Yes.
And that'll leave us a mildly awkward number of points.
It does leave us with an awkward number of points because we have 110.
Yeah.
Which means we don't. I mean, it might just be we have a list that's like 1975.
It's fair.
And now that could be okay. Now 110, what can we do with that isn't that?
If we cut the Calidus, we'd have a clean 200, which is just short of a 5-man Terminator squad.
It is that Grandmaster, but I think I want to add a little more mission play in here.
Sure.
Is 110 points a henchman squad with the no teleporty guy and an Inquisitor to go with it?
Possibly. My memory is that it's a little more than that, but let's check the cost of a henchman with Mystic.
My memory, unfortunately, is that it's 115.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Just trolling us all over.
It's just trolling. I mean, we could take a Calexis instead of the Calidus.
Feels like sacrilege in Grey Knights. Continue.
I don't know what combination of buttons to push to get the unit comp I want, so let's look at it. Mystic, Mac. All right, we've got... Looks like with a Mystic, the cheapest is 60, and an Inquisitor is 55. I know that one off the top of my head.
Yes. Unforge. With 110, we could go like... We could either do an assassin or we could do a double like of an agent squad instead of one guy. Here's a question for you. If we have 3 points, how much is the Grandmaster Dread Knight? Would one Grandmaster, 2 Dread Knights, is that better than 3 Dread Knights, or do you actually value the Dread Knight more than the Grandmaster?
The regular Dread Knight is just better than a Grandmaster.
Okay, that was my wonder, because I really think the Dread Knight rule is insane. Fair enough.
Yeah, the Grandmaster, the regular Dread Knight, for those at home, gets advance, fallback, shoot, and charge on a guy who flat advances 6 and gets fly.
They put an Epic Hero rule on a Dreadnought.
But he's a guy. He's a cool guy.
Yeah.
The Grandmaster in the Dread Knight does not get that. What he gets is he can use strats for 1 CP, which is literally with the nerf to battle tactics. It is only dev wounds, and he can spend 1 CP on it, not 2. Pointless. Or 1 Grandmaster per turn gets real hits, wounds, and damage in combat against monsters and vehicles. And the in combat part is the part that, listen, I'm not against having 1, but advanced, fallback, shoot, and charge is just
better.
Wild.
Yep. Okay.
The other thing we could do is put in a librarian for the last 110. But solo librarians feels like, yes, Kara Quintero said the same thing. Solo librarians are disappointment.
How much is a solo librarian?
110.
I personally feel like a single librarian is better than an assassin.
You think so?
I do. Not an assassin, and I have something to do with the points left over.
Right,
but if you just told me that a Calexis was 110 and this librarian is 110, I would rather have a librarian.
Would you rather have a Calidus librarian or a Calexis Eversor henchman?
Calexis Eversor henchman is more interesting because that does fit. You could also do Calexis Inquisitor and then henchman with a mystic. You could even get an Eversor and a strike team, I think.
I do think that's probably better. Now the thing about the librarian,
Eversor and strikes.
Yeah, Grey Knight Terminators, I don't know about the characters because this has rarely come up for me, have grenades. And that does not extend to the characters. So I was thinking like, you could 3-inch deep strikes, mind blast, throw a grenade.
The Space Marine librarian model, he does. That's why he doesn't have grenades.
That is very
It's completely true. I guarantee your chaplain doesn't either. So the librarian can uppy downy as one of the choices.
Yes.
Now, obviously, you cap at 3, so you don't know how often you're going to be using that, but it's an option.
The Calidus is number 4, which is nice.
Yep. Yeah, the Calidus brings her own, which is cool, but, you know...
Dread Knights need it significantly less, because they move 14 stock.
They're insanely fast.
Yeah.
And they fly.
Yes.
So they do... Like, the librarian does appreciate that. It is a splash of mortals, which you could combine with a grenade off of some things. That is valuable. It also is a throwaway objective holding piece that is harder to kill up close than a lone op is, but easier to kill with a manticore than a lone op is.
What I like theoretically is that I think against Thousand Suns, I'm debating whether you want to just like, oh, my librarian's actually leading my Terminators.
Yeah.
Probably not, but like you could.
I would consider that. It's a far field pain against Psychic is why you're mentioning that.
Exactly. Yes.
My immediate instinct is if we're just putting 110 points in, I would rather have the librarian than an assassin. But I am willing to kind of consider the strike and Eversor versus Calidus and librarian, because that is the same cost.
Yeah, I probably am leaning towards strikes. Eversor strikes are very good.
Yeah, I'm quite down to hear that. Like more silver boys. You are downgrading the assassin. It's not an insignificant downgrade, but it is still filling the role of the lone op because, frankly, the up-down of the Calidus getting to places is not something Grey Knights particularly struggle with. One extra thing is cool.
She's also... A Calidus I've found is an excellent way for the list to give up Assassinate on a turn when your opponent can't get it otherwise. Now, an Eversor is exactly the same.
Yeah, the Eversor is just not pretending, right? The Eversor is going to stay on your home objective after it's stickied and people have left.
Yep, or is going to go to your natural expansion as things happen around them.
He does scout, so he can he can run off real quick.
Exactly.
He gives you actually a little bit more top of one mobility than you normally have. I don't know how big of a problem that is, but on top of one, You don't have anything in reserves yet.
Not a zero.
Yeah,
problem.
but he gets to go scout, move, do things.
Yeah, top of 1, your Terminators can move 11, which is dope, but it doesn't always get you where you want to go. And if you draw something like Area Denial, then like...
Kind of annoying. Yeah,
kind of annoying.
Again, I don't know how big it is, but tactical top of 1 can be annoying for Grey Knights.
It can very well be.
You have 9 other turns to make it work, but, you know, the Eversword does provide a unique dimension. It's not a strict downgrade of the Calidus, in my mind.
Absolutely. I like the random assassins. Just getting a lone op somewhere is nice. So I'm down with it.
I like this version. Right the way it is.
All right.
All right, so I think that's what we're sending. So Will W. This is the Grey Knight list. And that, I think, is going to wrap us up for the day.
I think that is.
So, if you watched this, and specifically if you enjoyed it, we hope you did, make sure you like the video, share with your friends, leave a comment, do all the wonderful things, subscribe to the channel, that way you get notified every time we go live, because we do go live quite often with some free content on YouTube.
That's right. And if you want any more in-depth strategic content, if you watch our games every week and you want 2 more every single week, well, those are in the War Room, which is down in the link below, down at the warroom.vhx.tv. And there's a 3-day free trial. You can get in, submit your own list, you know, see all the videos pertaining to your faction, participate in our global community and our Discord, and just really get the War Room experience and see what you think.
Absolutely. And if you go through the link in the description below instead of YouTube channel, it does also give you free access to our iOS and Android app, and as well getting into the War Room, and of course also getting into the YouTube membership will either way get you access to Discord, and that's how you submit lists for future Fix My Lists. Next week is going to be Space Marines, but after that we'll cycle through Chaos and Xenos as normal. That's all for now, folks. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. We'll catch you all next time.
Bye-bye.